Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Amar Najam, and today the topic of my presentation is complications that are associated with hematopoietic stem cell transplantation. As my friends have already shared the conditions and treatment strategies, now we have to go with the complications that are associated with it. There are various complications, but the major ones that are usually found have been briefly described in this presentation. So the first and the major complication is the myelosuppression that is usually found in patients taking a hematopoietic cell transplantation, and it is due to the it is due to conventional doses of antinoplastics that causes the low limiting toxicity of it because of this dose limiting toxicity, myelosuppression, myeloplastic preparative regimens are usually used. The toxicities along with myelosuppression that most commonly occur in patient is alopecia, mucositis, infertility, or pulmonary toxicities that a patient may suffer that are going under hematopoietic cell transplantation along with myelosuppression, and it is the dose limiting problem. So, and usually found in most of the patients suffering taking hematopoietic cell transplantation. Next is busulfan seizures. Busulfan is usually given to patient leads to seizures, and approximately 10% of patients that are taking busulfan with in hematopoietic cell transplantation at high doses receive this suffer from busulfan seizure. This is mainly because the busulfan has a high tendency to pass BBB, that is blood-brain barrier, and cerebrospinal fluid. So it produces a greater extent of neurotoxic effect, leading to seizure prophylaxis. Now, to treat the seizure, phenytoin or benzodiazepines have been used, and they have to be given 24 hours prior to given busulfan, and after giving busulfan, it has to be continued for 24 to 48 hours so that the chances of seizure prophylaxis can be reduced. And one thing also to be kept in mind is the neurological effect is not permanent produced because of the busulfan. It is a of it continues during the duration of the treatment. Another complication associated with it is hemorrhagic cystitis in patients receiving cyclophosphamide. Usually suffer from hemorrhagic cystitis. About 4% to 20% patient suffer from this problem. A toxin called acrolein is produced in the bladder, which is a metabolite of cyclophosphamide. So when Mesna is given in the regimen, so it produces a thiol group which binds with the acrolein. So according to ASCO, that is American Society of Clinical Oncology guidelines, that while giving chemotherapy or radiotherapy, there should be protectants that should be given along with Mesna, and that is considered as line diuresis or forced line diuresis that reduces the toxicity of the of high dose cyclophosphamide in urothelial toxicities for the patients that are given hematopoietic cell transplantation. Another thing to be kept in mind is that hemorrhagic cystitis can occur due to by other methods as well. It is not compulsory that only cyclophosphamide will produce it. Other treatments may also lead to pulmonary cystitis. Now, chemotherapy that leads to gastrointestinal effects, the complications produced over there are when myeloablative hematopoietic cell transplantation occurs, then gastrointestinal organ toxicities like renal failure or idiopathic pneumonia syndrome may also occur. Moreover, lung injury has also been observed among 60% patients, and lung injury have been also observed, and mortality of about 60% and more have been also observed due to it. Risk factors that include this problem is total body irradiation, that is TBI, and allogenic HCT may occur, acute GVHD may occur. So this suggests that the donor lymphocytes are targeting the lung. So there could also be a chance of tumor necrosis that may be induced by GVHD, and it may affect the intestinal mucosa, leading to lung injury. So this chance of lung injury may be reduced by giving an entrance etanercept, which inhibits the necrosis factor and the effects of the corticosteroids. Another complication is veno-occlusive disease of the liver, that is VOD, we will call in short. So, hepatic VOD is also a life-threatening problem or complication associated with it, and the incidence of it ranges from 5.3 to 54%, and this variation in range is mainly because of the huge range of regimen provided to patients. Those regimens, including busulfan, cyclophosphamide, or TBI, um, less than 13.2% leads to increased chances of VOD problems. Although we do not clearly know the pathogenesis of it, but the key toxicity that occurs because of it is sinusoidal endothelial cell disruption or disorder. So this problem not actually always include hepatic venues, but uh, uh, it has been termed after it as sinusoidal obstruction syndrome, although it's not the compulsory symptom of it, but it has been giving name accordingly. And the endothelial damage that may occur in the patient's lung may leads to coagulation cascade, leading to thrombosis and eventually fibrosis or duration of the affected venues as well. Now, who is likely to recover from his or her VOD? How should he or she be treated? Actually, the overall mortality of the patient that develop from this is considerably 0% to 67%, and the rest is obviously the mortality rate of it. And those patients which have weight gain and elevation in their total bilirubin are most likely to die of this problem, as compared to those patients who do not show these symptoms like weight gain or increased bilirubin. And these patients rarely die. These patients rarely die because of liver failure itself, but also from renal or cardiopulmonary failure. So there could be a multi-organ system disruption leading to the death of these patients. Now, what should be the treatment for it? There are various pharmacological treatments that have been evaluated for it. One such way is the substitution of fludarabine for cyclophosphamide in combination with busulfan, and the use of reduced intensity regimens that are less likely to affect the liver. Um, and decreasing the chances of VOD risk. Actually, when busulfan is based on body weight, so the lower IV busulfan rates are better as compared to oral busulfan, and chemotherapy doses of busulfan or cyclophosphamide lower the chances of the VOD rates. Now we are moving towards a case study in which a woman who is 65 years old has been diagnosed with the myelodysplastic syndrome. Her history signifies that she had been a patient of diabetes 1 and renal dysfunction as well. After initial diagnosis, she have been in search for completely HLA meshed donor. She'll be receive a non-myeloablative allogenic HCT bone marrow. Now the regimen given is in order of fludarabine 30 mg per meter square per day, and the on days -4, -3, -2, and 2. The TBI of the bone marrow infusion for post-grafting cyclosporine and myelophenolate mofetil is now on day 2028, and the CBC of her reveals that her WBC count is of 500 cell, her no granulocyte, no monocytes detected, and platelets is 1 lakh, and her hematocrit level is 30%. Now the donor T cell chimerism is less than 5%. What is the patient experiences and how should be treated, and he or she be treated, is the required case study. Now, if we go towards the treatment, or so we have to look at it, the reduced intensity regimen of fludarabine should be given with an alkylating agent or low dosing TBI. This is because, as we know, fludarabine is very effective for VOD. So low doses regimen have to be prepared with non-myeloablative fludarabine and TGB. There is less chances also of neutropenia, thrombocytopenia, and non-hematological cytotoxicity. Moreover, engraftment is usually to be taken place 30 days in patients that are receiving non-myeloablative ablative regimens, and the rejection of it can also be um, there with patient at initial engraftment because patient have low T cell chimerism on day 28. She is at higher risk of experiencing the graft rejection. Now, the patient, if patient is at higher risk of graft rejection, a trial of discontinuing cyclosporin and mycophenolate mofetil is an option for that patient, as the patient's T cell chimerism should also be monitored periodically or timely. It should be checked because and as well as hematopoietic function should also be checked with the daily CBC level or the bone marrow biopsy continued with 2 weeks of time of that patient. I hope this presentation is clear. Thank you so much.